Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of SuperCoach, mates. Well, round 19 is done and dusted. I'm not sure if either of our sides are going to be playing finals, so it might be a very bleak September for myself and Thomas, who's in the podcast tonight. But in better news, our SuperCoach sides are going well. So I'm joined tonight by Thomas. How are you, Thomas? How's your weekend and day been?
Yeah, not too bad. Can't complain with how the Sounders went on the weekend. Obviously, smashed up the Eagles, which was nice. I think I saw a stat posted by the guy Jake down at Saints TV, who said that it was the first time that we actually got a 70-plus point victory since like round whatever in 2017, which is obviously shows how bleak our past kind of 10 years has been. But yeah, it was good to get back or get back on the winners list, and convincingly, and I think with the outs that West Coast had, that was pretty convincing. And it, yeah, shows that obviously we have the ability to score big when we can. But obviously, how was your weekend? And obviously, not too happy with how the Pies went.
No, I'm telling you, they were very close to being a rant again this week. But I've got a statistical rant on the side this week, which I don't think some people are gonna like.
Yeah,
But we'll get to that in a we'll get to that later on. But yeah, I was quite happy away from Collingwood. I won my draft league again, so I'm on top, undefeated.
yeah,
And I got 7 out of 9 winners in footy tips. So
yeah,
everywhere other than Collingwood are actually doing well, which I'm kind of happy about.
yeah, nice. I mean, that's why we call you the draft specialist. But I guess, yeah, obviously me and Jonas still in the classic run. Jonas, yeah, I actually played him in one of our leagues and got the win, which was nice. Had a shocking kind of start to the round with Butters' captaincy, and I was like, oh shit, here we go again, another bloody good
Oh,
score ruined or down the drain with his sub 100. But it seemed like everyone had the VC on him and the captaincy in either Neil or Dunkley, which it was even worse. So that made my weekend turn around pretty quickly. And then we'll go to my player in around in a minute. But yeah, Pip Jonas got a 24.85, would have been a healthy 25 something if Sarong did his job. Not Sarong, Butters did his job. But yeah,
others, yeah.
me up 500 spots into 1400, which is nice. And I've still got that one trade remaining, which is handy. We'll talk about my trade plans later. And obviously, Jonas not with us this season, but yeah, got 2400 and he's flying at the moment. Still managed to go up in the rankings, I think, to 448. So if he's able to kind of maintain, I don't know, I haven't spoken to him as of late, but if he's got trades left in the bank, he's flying. And I know he's in a good position wise with his side having been up against it this weekend. But moving on to, let me just bring up the tab. The player of the round for myself, little man Caleb Sarong, who was, yeah, it would have been in my villains list, I think, last week, but bounced back very strongly. We had a bit of concern with a potential Neil Bullen tag, which would have been very frustrating indeed. But yeah, it's one of those things where swings and roundabouts, played back to the Optus, which was fantastic. And yeah, dominated on the Optus ground, 140 super coach points, 36 disposals, 1 goal, and a big 423 metres gained in the midfield, which is huge. And yeah, really impressed with how he went about things, bounced back and obviously avoided a tag. But having said that, he's obviously likely to cop a tag in the rounds, but you can get what you can get with Caleb Strong, considering he's dropped all the way to about 520k, which is very frustrating considering I picked him up very early on in the 600s. But yeah, bounced back and really catapulted my score up into the healthy kind of 2450 pluses, which is good to see. And hopefully, yeah, he can obviously continue his good form into the back end of the season or the last remaining 5 games or so. Moving on now
Oh,
swiftly
my
to. Oh,
Sorry,
yeah,
I'll
we're
just so my player of the week was your mate, Jack
yeah,
Sinclair. I did flag him as a vice captain option. So if you ended up going down that path, you would have been really happy with his 140.
yeah,
So that was my player of the week.
yeah, nice. Yeah, Sinclair's a gun. Hopefully, he can continue his run home strongly. But yeah, moving on to a couple of trading options that obviously on either end of the spectrum with regards to classic and perhaps draft leagues if you're looking at waivers and whatnot. But obviously in the forward line, we've had some carnage of late with Luke Jackson question mark on his knee. You've got Nathan Kruger now going down with a concussion. He misses a week. You got guys in the midfield, Dawson's concussion in the right. Nank's got a concussion, so it's yeah carnage all around. But Forward line, it seems to be where the volatility in the scoring is happening. I want to get your opinions quickly on these two players in particular. I've got Curnow, so I've relived essentially a couple of weeks of PTSD with him scoring peanuts. And last 2 weeks has been impressive, which is nice. And hopefully he can come home strong. But he's, very cheaply priced with obviously shitty ass scores in the last kind of month. But Dylan Moore's another one who looked very impressive in the wet against Collingwood, against your mob. But yeah, with a break even of 126, still on the higher end of things, has a bit of up and down scoring. But on the flip side, has the ability to score ridiculously highly. What's your thoughts on these two, and who would you bring in? I'm going to flip it both ways. If you had the cash to bring in both, who would you bring? Or is there merit in bringing one or the other, considering Curnow's peanuts at the moment with regards to basement price?
Yeah, well, I'm just going to maintain what I said earlier on in the year, and that is that outside of Heaney, although he's fallen away, we'll get to him later on, but outside of him, Flanders or Zorko, I think the rest of the forward line is an absolute lottery. So, based on that, I'd probably be taking Curnow and saving the 150k. But then again, if it's your last trade, I'd probably be more reliable with Dylan Moore, given that I think Hawthorn are coming. They're probably the third best side in it right now, which is amazing considering the fact they're 11th on the table. And I just don't like key forwards in SuperCoach. I think they're very up and down. I know Dylan Moore's an absolute roller coaster for those of you who've got him, but I think I would bank on him to outscore Curnow for the rest of the year. And if you've only got one trade left, well, if you can afford both players, then the price doesn't really matter. So I think I'd be leaning towards Dylan Moore. But if you had, say, 2 trades left, and you needed somewhere else to upgrade, well, Curnow might end up being your preferred option. But I think if I had one trade, which is what I'm assuming most sides probably would have around this time of the year, I would be going in the Dylan Moore camp if I had the money.
Yeah, I do agree with you with that in that sense. I mean, Curnow's very cheap and he shows he can score very quickly. I know he's on about 30 at halftime and ended up on 106 or whatnot playing North, but kicked 5 goals in the process. But yeah, Moore doesn't need the goals to do well. His tackle pressure and disposals is where he gets his points. But having said that, I think the main thing is his money. And I guess, as Nathan pointed out, if you've got one trade left and you need an F6 or F7, Moore's probably it. They've got a very cushy run home for midfielders, and
Yeah, they do.
Very quickly is amazing. But Curnow is fun to watch. On the flip side, he's most frustrating to watch at the same time. But yeah, if you're looking for someone cheap as an F7, considering you've got, I don't know, a Kruger sitting there, you only need about 150k to get to Curnow, and he's a perfect F7 because he's got the ability to kick 6 or 7 goals in one game and really hit the ceiling score. So I guess it's where your team's at. But I think, as Nathan said, if you've got the cash, probably Moore's your safer bet. However, if you're strapped for cash, Curnow is definitely a solid option this week. But moving onwards to some trade outs. Now, this is obviously dependent on your team. I know teams don't even have trades remaining, but obviously this was a week where concussion was a big issue and there was a bit of controversy. I know in Mackay getting knocked to the head and still playing on. Dawson's concussion was kind of brought into question. But yeah, it's now listed as Dawson missing a week, as is Nank. Dawson's priced at 473, which is ridiculous considering he was 650 odd prior to the season starting. Nank's at a pretty high price as well, considering he had a good run. What are your thoughts on trading out either of these two if you have them? Is there, obviously, because they're 1 weekers, do you reckon you should hold? Or if you're playing for rank, is there a merit in actually trading them out? Dawson, I'm not a huge fan of trading out just because of his price is so low, unless you've got couple trades and a lot of cash. Nank, I want your opinion on this, Nathan, from a kind of neutral perspective. I ended up going Lloyd Meek ahead of Nank, so I got lucky considering Meek's turned up twice in a row so far, so I've been pretty happy with his output. But yeah, Nank, at 620k, you could pretty much go a lot of other ruckmans like your English Marshalls, Meek in there, Sherry. I'm not too sure how expensive he is, but what are your thoughts on downgrading Nank potentially, considering you just come off a 58 injury affected score to actually get some quick cash and bring another premium ruckman who could last you the season.
Hang on, I'm just doing something real quick. So I think I'm actually going to go a little bit different here. I think if you've got 2 trades, I think it might be worth actually moving both of these guys on, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Especially for rank. I think if you go from Nank down to Lloyd Meek, which I think will be
Yeah.
very popular this week, that banks you 73k. Which if you've got Dawson in your side, I'm just going to have a quick look now with some players around within 70k of him. So you've got, what is he, 473? All right. So there probably isn't really a lot around his price, but just quickly, so you've got like Jack Steele, Chad Warner, Sam Walsh. They're all within sort of that 70k of him. I think Sarong's probably just a little bit more.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a few good options there for Dawson. But if you've only got one trade, I would probably counteract that and say you probably shouldn't be trading Dawson, given that he probably should have been a starting mid at the start of the year. And you probably, if you're still stuck by him, well, you just got to go down, unfortunately, with the boat as it sinks. But as for Nank, I think he's just an easy bench. I think most people would have Luke Jackson in their forward line, so I think I'd just swing him up into the ruck line this week and just bank whatever Luke Jackson gets and move on with Nank. I think he's still going to be a top 4, top 5 ruckman. And at this stage of the year, you just can't be trading that out if you don't have to. So. Yeah, I think if you've got 2 trades and you're highly ranked, I would probably do the first option. But otherwise, if you're just playing now for fun, I would probably just hold both of them, given that it's only a week.
Yeah. No, 100% agree. I think concussions obviously can linger, as we saw with a few players so far. But I think if you've got very limited trades available, one trade or less, I mean, what obviously zeros, you can't do much. But yeah, one trade I'd hold. But as Nate said, I think this is where Jackson becomes invaluable because he's got that ruck swing, has the ability to score nicely. But as I said, if he misses as well, I think a lot of teams in a bit of strife, unfortunately. But moving onwards to our tags for the week. We obviously, I completely forgot to actually put this in last week. I didn't realize until after posting it out. But yeah, back to our tags. I know taggers are in vogue. We might actually have a discussion about this at season's end about how effective it actually is moving into next season, whether teams will decide to put a tagger on and if it's most effective or not. But the 4 that I can think of off the top of my head, and Nathan, you can jump in afterwards if you think there is any others that you can think of. But yeah, James Jordan plays the Dogs. Easily could see him going to Dale or Treloar. Having said that, I think Jordan actually did quite well in nullifying Nocky Neal. I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nathan. After
I think
halftime.
he spent time on everyone.
Yeah, so he does a very good job, and I can see him doing it with whoever is the most damaging at the time, other than Bont, potentially just because of size. Toby Bedford, he's done a very good job tagging this season, as frustrating it is for opposition supporters. I think he goes to Oliver. Liam Baker is a surprising one, and I want to get your opinion on this one, Nath. He obviously isn't a known tagger. They had Jack Graham in. Jack Graham gets injured. I'm pretty sure he got injured, not dropped. But that's why Butters was such an appealing option. And lo and behold, Baker spends a bit of time on Butters, and so does Seth Campbell, I think I heard around the ground, which was frustrating. And I could see him doing a job on Dacos, like for like player. And Chincotta, he's in a very frustrating opposition person, considering that Carlton weren't really tagging at any points throughout the season, other than their midfield doing a good job nullifying opposition midfield. But I really expect, especially if Farrell isn't named, Chincotta goes straight to Houston just because of how damaging he is offensively speaking. What are your thoughts on those 4 tags? And is there any ones in particular that you can think of off the top of your head that might be a danger sign?
Yeah, I mean, I think all 4 of them are logical picks. I think you're crazy to let Nick Dacos run around unmanned, so I think Liam Baker will go to him, or Richmond will put some kind of time into him. And yeah, the Houston one's interesting because last time Carlton really sort of lockdown on Houston and Farrell. So if Farrell's not playing, well, you can almost put the house on it. Then Chin Cotter will go to Houston or Butters, one of the two, and they'll just back in whoever doesn't get tagged to sort of nullify them as a team. Which I would say probably Butters is probably the one that's more likely to get the team nullifying. But yeah, the only other one that I can see, I think you've done a pretty good job. The only other one I could see maybe is Sam Durham from Essendon, perhaps going to Jack Steele in the St Kilda game. But otherwise, I think that's probably it. And I'll just chime in. I think taggers will be back in vogue next year. I think every side will have a tagger next year. I think it's just ridiculous that sides don't have one, especially from my part of my rant, which is about or the Collingwood rant last week about why Collingwood decided to let Zach Merritt run around and have 30 disposals and half of them were direct scores. And then a week later, he got tagged and Essendon crumbled. So I just think it's crazy to not have at least the player there who's capable of tagging.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think you look at Lockie Neal's out gets nullified by Windhager against our boys, and then against Sydney started like a house on fire, and as soon as they put any attention into him, he just shuts down completely. And I think it's so important to, as much as it's frustrating as super coaches because your best players get nullified quite quickly, you probably got to start thinking if it is a real threat moving into next season, do you start picking midfielders who aren't tag threats like your Bonts, like your Paddy Cripps, to see whether that holds up against your Walshes and Neils, whereas, you know, they might get your 180s, 170 peak scores, but they can easily stuff it with a 30, a 70, 60. So that'll be an interesting discussion point come season's end. But moving onwards to, let me just pop up the next screen. Before we get to your rant, Nate, the top targets or trading targets as well as the top VC options. I think you're obviously trying to look for value at this point of the season. Sinclair's probably the only caveat to that with regards. I've got a bit of bias as well, and Nath as well with regards to his draft team. But I think you got to start looking for value if you're trading out players. Obviously, you know, if you got one trade left and someone gets injured, you're just trying to find the best available. But I'm obviously talking from a perspective of if you were trying to find an extra premium as well, if you have trades up your sleeve. I think Errol Goulden has found some form at the best time possible for Sydney. He was kind of in trouble earlier this season, just not finding enough of the ball, playing a wing half-back role, which he was losing CBAs and not being as effective. I think he's been a lot more impactful in games, which has been pleasing to see for Sydney Swans fans, and he's just dominating games off his own boot. He's got ridiculous TOG at the moment, going to 90%, which is ridiculous for his kind of game style. Sinclair, yeah, I had knocks on him when he was playing midfield. You know, I thought as a St Kilda supporter, if he was being thrown in the midfield, it would have just been he gets lost in there and whatnot and struggles to make an impact. He's much better off halfback. He showed against West Coast. He's just a class above and really is flourishing. He flourished in that role this week or last week, so on Saturday. And if he's able to replicate that against stronger midfields, hopefully, regardless where he plays, he can A, avoid a tag and be as impactful in either situation. And the last one, which I'd be interested to get your thoughts on, I don't know how much Adelaide Crows games you watch. Ben Keys is one I'm actually half tempted by as a trading option with my final trade because Kruger's out. And I would ideally want a extra forward with how volatile Curnow and Jackson are in particular. But yeah, Benny Keys, 490k, break even of 5. So this is probably the last time you can grab him because I don't like him at 500k plus. Has Hawks, which is a tough game now. Hawks are playing amazing footy. Cats is a very easy midfield, especially if he pushes into their Dogs are questionable at the best of times. I actually had a bit of a deeper dive into his statistics. He's playing that high half forward role, pressure forward role with Rankin out the side. He's their main kind of enigma in there in that forward scope. Kicked 5 goals on the weekend, destroyed Essendon off his own boot, scored a 150 something. I think the pleasing thing is, I'm just going to bring up the stats here on my phone. He played, I think the previous week he played against our boys and scored 1 goal, 3 and still score 120 points. So the main kind of consistent factor in those two games in particular, he had 8 tackles in both games. So huge tackle numbers, huge pressure numbers, was a risk of getting suspended against a dump tackle for Caudles, but he got away. I think he got away with that one. So, yeah, he's an interesting one, which I want to get your thoughts on, Nathan. And also, just honourable mentions there, Ed Richards dominates games in sloppy conditions. I wouldn't say he's going to get 144 each week, but yeah, against the Cats, he was a perfect matchup. Plays the Swans next week, could easily do the same thing because we all know how damaging he is in contested footy. And Darcy Cameron plays against Richmond in a pretty much do or die game for Collingwood. I know the season's slipping, but would be a bounce back game. No name Curvis in there, could go bananas. What's your thoughts on those top three and any other kind of players that you've seen, obviously watching over the weekend, that you think are worthy mentions, Nath?
Yeah, well, obviously, Jack Sinclair's the one for me out of that group. You just know what you're gonna get with Sinclair. Golden, I think, and Keys as well. I think they could be up and down. I could probably wear Keys a bit better in the forward line, given that it is already so volatile. That Keys just adds to that volatility. So I think you've got better options out there than Goulden at that 590k price. As I said, I think Sarong's 70k cheaper. I think Jack Steele's another 10k cheaper than that. I think I'd rather have them at this stage than Errol Goulden. As for Ben Keys, yeah, he has snuck up on me a little bit, but again, my only worry with Ben Keys is I don't know what's going to happen to him when Isaac Rankin comes back in the side. And I think at this stage of the year, I think it's just a little bit too I think it's just a little bit too risky to be bringing someone in of that of that ilk. But then again, as I said, the forward line's an absolute roller coaster. So as I said, outside of Heaney, Zorko, and Flanders, there probably isn't really any reliable forward. So if Ben Keys is who you want to get, well, I think you just grab him and just hope that he can sort of score consistently. As for Darcy Cameron, I think I've probably missed the boat on Darcy Cameron. I feel like he's already 525k. I think I'd rather go the extra sort of 30k and get Brodie Grundy if I had to. So I think the ruck role is sort of a little bit overstated as well in that unless they're getting hit-outs to advantage, they don't really score that well. I think the scoring system works. I think it's like 6 for a hit-out to advantage. I think it's 1 or 0 if it's like neutralized, and then I think it's like -3 if it gets sharked.
Yeah.
Which basically means that the hit out goes straight to the opposition player. So I wouldn't be surprised if Richmond actually set up this week knowing that they're probably going to lose the hit outs, and rather they just try and shark a lot of Cameron's hit outs because Collingwood are very vulnerable across the whole field. So, and as for Richards, yeah, again, I don't mind the Richards pick, but only as a defender. If you're picking him in the midfield, there's better options out there. But as a defender, I don't mind the Ed Richards pick. But again, there's probably better options out there. But I think Ed Richards in the back line probably isn't the worst pick. But I think there are probably better options out there at that price than what Richards is. But if that's the path you want to go down, well, then go down that path.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think there's obviously a lot of teams are out of trade, so this kind of thing doesn't relate. But I know a fair few teams would have trades at the bank, and I think if you have trades and are kind of lingering in that 2 to 3k range or even 1k range in ranking, this would be the week to really kind of bump up ranking and trying to pick unique players. If you're picking, safe options, you're really not going to get anywhere. You really think outside the box and hopefully get a few spike scores from players is the most important thing. But before we move on to the latter end of our episode and Nathan's rant, quick top 3 VCC options, rattle them off for you. Sheasel is a really obvious one, I think. I don't think he's going to cop any attention from... Oh, he might cop attention from the Cats. That's a lie. but I think he plays in the midfield or just flip to halfback and vice versa. I went berserk against them earlier in the season at Alphabet Stadium. Scored 159 on them. Lockie Neal, I could expect a huge bounce back game considering he was pretty poor on his own standards, getting nullified. It'll be interesting to see what Dimmer Hardwick does, considering he's openly stated that he thinks his midfield can go one-on-one with anyone in the comp, whether he puts attention into Neal, considering how well he gets nullified, especially if there's attention on him. And I think the Sunday game, Goulden's I'd say a no-brainer against the Dogs. The Dogs don't have anyone that can run with him. Potentially, if they want to tag him, Lockie Bramble as a guy can run with him all day. But yeah, I don't think anyone's going to keep up with Goulden. Score 131 in a recent outing with him. Is there anyone else that you can think of off the top of your head, Nath, that would be a viable option? And if so, who?
Yeah, the only other one I would say is a viable option is probably Sam Walsh. But I think you've hit the nail on the head here. I think Lockie Neal into Errol Goulden will be very popular this week. And I'm not sure why you wouldn't do that if you have both players, considering the fact that Hardwick's on record as saying he doesn't tag, and Lockie Neal goes gangbusters whenever he doesn't cop a tag. And Goulden, well, we saw the Dogs try and tag this year, and it just hasn't worked. So I think kneeling to Goulden will be very popular this week, and I think kneeling to Heaney might be another popular option this week. So I think if you've got one of those or two of those three, just pick your poison there. Harry Sheasel, don't mind the pick, but I think with Lockie Neal against Gold Coast Suns, they're playing for a top 2 spot. Brisbane, Gold Coast Suns are playing for the top 8 spot. So it's going to be a pretty hot game. And he generally does well in the hot games when he doesn't get tagged. So I think Neal's the logical one. And then, yeah, Goulden or Heaney, take your pick.
Yeah, 100% agree. Moving on to everyone's favourite part of the show. And we're on watch if Nathan blows a fuse at some point in the season. But yeah, let's hear it. I know you've got a few lined up, especially, how disappointing the Bombers were to lose one. And obviously Isaac Heaney was everyone's Brownlow medal favourite, but take it away.
Now, Mr. Isaac. Now, some people call you pretty boy with the way that you look. Over the last 4 weeks, your football definitely hasn't been pretty. Your side is faltering around you. I know that your losses have been by a combined 10 points. I know that Collingwood last year went through exactly the same thing and it didn't hurt them. But the biggest difference is that the grand final this year is going to be not on your home ground. It's going to be in Melbourne. And I'm telling you now, your form needs to lift over the next 6 weeks. Otherwise, your Brownlow hopes might be gone, and you're probably borderline of being in front of it. If that's something that you really want, well, then you've got 5 weeks to show the comp why you're the best player again in the league. And you've also got to help your side out. Losing 3 of the last 4 games is a little bit concerning. I know it's only been by 10 points, but for those out there who are a bit of stats nerds and nuffies like I am, there are some signs that perhaps sides are starting to work out how Sydney play and how they want to move the ball. So, for Isaac, this is just a small little clip for you to get yourself back into the year, because your side's done extremely well to be at this point. You've done extremely well to be in Brownlow contention. And I think for you and your supporters, the last thing that they would want to see is this season slip away, like some Sydney seasons have done in the past, like 2022 and 2016, when especially 2016, when you probably were runaway favourites for that and you weren't able to do it. So, Isaac, you need to lift over the next 5 weeks. And as for Essendon, well, I've been on record of saying that Essendon are the most unpressured team in the AFL, in that if you apply any sort of pressure to them whatsoever, they fold like a deck of cards. And the second quarter of that showed that they folded like a deck of cards. So I've just got some numbers up here. So when everyone thinks of finals football, they think of a game being high pressure, high intensity. Now that game style does not suit Essendon at all. So I'm taking this from the Fox Footy website. So in low pressure games, so pressure is basically measured as a number, and 180 is the standard pressure gauge. So in games this year where sides have been below that 180, Essendon are 7 wins and 2 losses. However, in the higher pressure games, like on the weekend, Essendon are 3 wins, 4 losses, and a draw. So, and the second quarter was basically vindication of that Essendon just could not do anything under Adelaide's pressure, coughed up 9 goals in the second quarter. And I think Essendon had 11 turnovers in their back half. Yeah, and Adelaide got 7 goals won from those 11 turnovers. So I just think that this is a method of beating Essendon in that if you can bring pressure, even just for a quarter based on what we saw on the weekend, if you can just bring a high pressure quarter and go back to that Collingwood game in round 19 or whenever we played them, round 17, that first quarter, we brought the pressure and Essendon couldn't handle it. And as soon as they took the pressure, the game out of pressure, they got on top. So I just don't think that the way that they're playing is going to stand up in finals. I think it's going to unfortunately be another year where we continue adding on to the 6,000 days or whatever it is since Essendon last won a final. And it is kind of really sad that there's been basically a whole youthful generation of Essendon supporters who have not seen their side win a final. And this is a proud club who've got a rich history, but for too long they have been too soft, especially defensively. And I just think that this is going to be another year where they start the season off really, really well and they just crumble at the end of the year. So, yeah, I just think that sides now will go to work with Essendon and say, well, if we take away your uncontested game and make it a high pressure game, you're going to crumble. So, um, I know that Essendon probably aren't in the premiership things this year, and they never were to begin with. But I think for mine, I think coming into the year, I think most Essendon supporters probably would have been happy to see their side win a final. Well, I can safely say now that unless these numbers change, and it's probably going to be hard to do in 6 weeks, that they will unfortunately be going out in the first week of finals again if they even make the finals without a win. So to Essendon, you need to have a big off season and you need to figure out how to handle pressure because I think sides next year will try and come at you with this high pressure. And if you keep crumbling, well, you're going to just keep not making finals and winning finals. So that's my rant for the week. Oh, and by the way, I could have easily put Collingwood in the rant again, but I didn't really want to. They've already had enough airtime, and I think everyone knows where Collingwood are at. So, yeah, that's my nag for the week.
Oh yeah, 100%. Agree. As I said every week, I think, especially if Collingwood keep going downhill as they are, and a slippery slope, or any of your players start to really shit the bed, I think Nathan's going to genuinely lose a few marbles by the end of or season's end. But as we finish off this episode, we've got a couple things that we're going to go through quickly. As we said, we're going to have another crack at this Warple game just before we finish off the episode entirely.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I got this the day after we did it. I got it in 5 guesses.
Oh, did ya? So hopefully 2 and 2 together, we'll get this one pretty quickly. But before we do that, this will be our second last round review next week will be our last round review for 2 weeks, just because I'm going overseas and it's going to be a little bit hard to coordinate recordings. What I might experiment with, and this will be highly dependent on whether an iPad and phone can do the trick, is release some shorts or YouTube shorts on our channel that are a lot easier to record and upload through those devices. I'm not going to bring my laptop with me, so I can't really sit down and edit a whole episode. But whether or not I can do our round review in a quick kind of format through shorts is yet to be seen. I'll experiment with that over the next week or so. But also as a bit of a thank you, as we've got a lot of support on social media, especially we took a bit of a hiatus last year. I know a lot of you guys were asking when are the episodes gone, or where are they coming back and all that. And we've had a bit of support, which is nice to see, especially coming back. I know it's a bit hard mid-season. There's not a lot of content out there, or not a lot of content to make, because a lot of SuperCoach teams are pretty much finished up. But yeah, as a bit of a thank you, we're sitting at about 989 followers at the time of recording. YouTube-wise, we're sitting at 77 subscribers. I know it's pretty low, but I know, as I said, we took a bit of a break since starting, and we're trying to rebuild that and kind of pump out consistent videos. So the bit of a giveaway we're going to do is once we hit 1,000 followers on Twitter, so that's 11 more to go, and then 100 subscribers on YouTube, what I'm planning to do is put together a bit of a footy card package as a bit of a giveaway. So how this is going to work, and this could end up in shambles if this camera doesn't work, but Nathan's going to be doing his kind of quick tips for round 20 and who he thinks is going to win. And whilst we do that, I'm going to crack open a few packs, 2 AFL Select 24 ones and 2 Retro 2016 Footy Stars ones. Hopefully they're going to come up on an extra camera in a minute. But whilst Nathan rambles off his tips for round 20, we're going to crack those open. The kind of the best pools that we get, we're going to put together as a little thank you package. And one of you guys can win it. Next week, we'll probably do it again at the end of the episode, and I'll explain exactly how you can enter that draw. Actually, no, I'll do it at the end of this episode, sorry. So I'll explain how to enter in that, and one of you will be lucky enough to take home that little thank you package, or it won't be much, depending on who we pull, but yeah, as a bit of thank you, if we reach, once we reach 1,000 subscribers, not 1,000 subscribers, I'm talking about 1,000 followers on Twitter, and then 100 subscribers on YouTube as a bit of a milestone for our guys over here. But yeah, Nathan, take it away with kind of your quick tips for round 20 and who you think, or who you're putting your tip on for each of those matches coming up.
Yeah, so obviously starting off with Friday night, I think this is a very easy one. I think Carlton should win this game, given the fact that Port Adelaide's record against top 8 sides is horrific, and Carlton's record actually isn't quite as bad. So I think that's a very easy one. I think Carlton will win that game. And I think they'll continue on their merry way for a top 2 spot, which I think they probably need, given the fact that the 3 sides below them are all interstate sides. So I don't think they want to be travelling in week 1. So I think Carlton should win that game. The next game, so North Melbourne v Geelong, this is actually an interesting game, given that it's in Tasmania. I think when I did this about 4 or 5 weeks ago, I actually picked North Melbourne to win this game. And I still think the fact that it's in Tasmania, I still think that's going to come into some consideration. But it's hard to look past Geelong at the minute, given that, well, up until last week, their form was kind of good. I think they just ran into a really hot Bulldogs side who need to win basically to stay in finals. But yeah, as I said, I probably will tip Geelong for this game, but I don't mind North Melbourne. I think if I was a bettor, and obviously please gamble responsibly, I wouldn't mind taking a look at North Melbourne at the line, just because I do think they are a bit of an outside chance of winning this game. So I'll tip Geelong, but not with a great deal of confidence. The Q clash, well, I think Gold Coast at home are unbeaten, and on the road they're not. They haven't won yet. So, look, I think their next 2 games are probably going to be their hardest home games for the year, given the fact I think they've got Melbourne maybe in there, which they might be playing for finals as well. So, I would say based on that, it'd be hard to tip against Brisbane, given the form that they're in. But Gold Coast just haven't lost at home. So that's sort of a bit of a 50-50 one. But I think I will tip Brisbane purely because they're actually not, they're travelling, but they're travelling an hour down the road. So I think if there's any game Gold Coast Suns are going to lose, it's going to be this game here at home. As for St Kilda and Essendon, I actually like St Kilda in this game. I don't really know why. Um, I just feel like the way that St Kilda play, I feel like that they're probably okay at pressuring opposition. And as I discussed earlier, if St Kilda want to make this a scrap, well, I think that's going to play really into their hands. So even though Essendon are favourites, even though Essendon are sitting, eighth on the ladder and need to win to stay in finals, I don't think I mind St Kilda in this game. So I think I will tip St Kilda actually at this stage of the week. Melbourne v GWS. Well, I don't really think the Giants deserve to win last week, given the fact I think it was a 10-goal turnaround on expected scoring. So I don't think they're going that great at the minute, the Giants. So the fact that it's in Melbourne, I think, would lean towards me tipping Melbourne. And it'd probably be even more so if Max Gawn's back. I know Bedford's probably going to go to Oliver, but I still think Melbourne on the MCG probably are slightly better than what the Giants are. So Melbourne for me, the next one, Fremantle should be winning this game comfortably. I'm not even going to go into that deeper. Richmond, Collingwood. Well, you'd think Collingwood probably should win this, given that Richmond seem to be running out of legs in the second half. But I wish I could say that with more confidence. But I think if there's any game that Collingwood would probably want right now, it's probably Richmond, given just where Richmond are at and the fact that they're not going to have a ruckman and they're just decimated by injuries. So I think Collingwood will get a few back this week. I think McCreary and Mason Cox are both in line to come back. And I think Lockie Schultz is as well. So there's some much needed firepower up in the forward line. So at this stage, I'll tip Collingwood, but not with a great deal of confidence.
Yeah.
The Sunday 3:20 game, I think Sydney will win this game. But again, the Bulldogs seem to have a knack of turning up well against the really good sides. But the thing that's leaning me towards Sydney is the fact that they've already played this year and the Sydney Swans won. And the Bulldogs, I think the last time the Bulldogs won more than 3 games in a row was like 2021. So they've just been an absolute roller coaster for the last 3 or 4 years, which probably explains why they are where they are on the ladder. So again, at this stage, I'll be tipping Sydney, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Dogs win. Again, gamble responsibly. I would probably take the Dogs at the line in that game. And then the last game of the weekend, which is Adelaide v Hawthorn. This game is a genuine 50-50 game again. I think at this stage, I think I would lean slightly towards Adelaide, only because it's at Adelaide Oval. But it's hard to ignore the form of the Hawks, given that I think since round 8, they've conceded the least amount of points from turnover. And I think they've scored the third most from turnover. And they're the best side of scoring from stoppage across the season, I think. So, yeah, this one he might just come down to the fact that it's in Adelaide. But again, I can't fault the Hawks. Obviously, I've seen them firsthand last week. But I think at this stage, I think I will tip Adelaide purely because it's in Adelaide.
Yeah, no, I think you nailed every tip on the head. I'm really hoping our boys can cause a few issues for Essendon on the run home and cause an upset. I'm actually tipping our boys, not out of bias, but genuinely believe we can cause an upset and beat Essendon, especially recovering from the pain that we lost, I think only 5 points or whatever it was early in the season. But yeah, hopefully Nathan nails a few, and I know how accurate he has been with his tipping and always has been. But just before we head over to Warple and wrap it up for this episode, just a quick recap if you're looking at the other screen. So as I said, from the packs I just opened up, if I can get this on screen now. So we got a few retro cards as well. The first one being the caricature of Zach Tui from his Carlton days. Zach Butters, Stats King, a Nat 5 XL, Lockie Neal, Footy Heads, a Bontempelli XL. So how this is going to work, let me just remove this one quickly. How this is going to work, as I mentioned before, is next week we'll probably do the exact same thing. Maybe get some team coach footy cards in, and just open a few on episode. And then what will happen is it'll be simple as, and I'll post this on Twitter and our YouTubes and our socials as well. It'll be simple as liking the video, subscribing to both our X and our Twitter and YouTube. And how I'm going to pick the winner is as simple as either a live stream or on episode. Whoever's entered, do it on a random wheel, and the winner will get a choice of up to 5 to 6 of those cards of their selection, whatever you want, of those players that we pull. So if we get lucky and pack someone big, you can of course pick that player. So yeah, I'll get in contact with the winner when it comes to it. Hopefully we'll do that prior to season's end. Before we wrap it up this episode, I know we've gone on for a little bit, but as me and Nathan said, we want to have a go at this game again, considering we cooked it the last time. We go into what's happening here? Here we go, share screen. Warple, here we go. So let's throw the silhouette and let's have a crack in the last couple minutes.
Boy.
Straight away.
Pardon?
I have a feeling I know who it is, but I'm going to let you have a crack first.
I can picture it, but I can picture his face, but the name's lost me.
All right. Who do you think he plays for?
I could picture his face. I can't picture his jumper though.
My guess is Nick Dacos. I could be totally wrong.
You reckon? No, I don't think it'd be Nick Dacos. Surely not.
Hey, there we go.
Hey!
I had a feeling it was him with his haircut, but yeah, there we go.
Well, that's not who I was. That's not who I was thinking.
Oh, you still don't know?
No, I could picture his face, but it doesn't matter now because it wasn't Nick Dacos. So
hopefully we can continue our run next week and see if we can get a bit of a consecutive thing going. Anyway,
well, that was a bit boring.
Yeah, hopefully we can get a bit of a harder one next time. But hopefully you guys have a good rest of your week. And hopefully, for the sake of your SuperCoach sides moving into obviously SuperCoach finals, which will be an interesting talking point in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, if you have trades, great. Try and get pods in your side and really boost up those rankings. Otherwise, if you don't have any trades, just, I don't know, pray to the gods and pray to the SuperCoach gods and hope for the best that you don't cook it. And hopefully your team will survive the rest of the season. But other than that, we'll catch you for the round 20 review.